Yeah, we're back again to do some more talk about Arsenal, which I read a stat the other day that Arsenal haven't won a Premier League game in something like 43 days. It is almost akin to the 40 days and 40 nights that supposedly not happened as to what I don't know why I'm going into religious connotations now. So this is what Arsenal's doing to me. It's just a case now of trying to make it through to the next game, which thankfully in Premier League sense is a lot shorter than it has been. Whether or not you want that next game to come around is another question. But Southampton is on the horizon. We've talked non-stop, it feels like, even though it's been just over 24 hours since the horrific incidents of yesterday. But we're going to talk about it some more, and I'm going to be joined by some fantastic guests to do so. So let's crack on with it. Hello and welcome to the Goon Talk. Back again with you guys for another show. I'm joined by three wonderful guests. First of all, Andy, how are you doing? You well, mate? Are you good?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. Thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good. As best as you can be at the moment, for sure. Mm-hmm. Sick and tired. How are you? Are you well?
I am both sick and tired of a lot of things at this moment. Yeah, but I'm not tired of you, Tom. I will wake up. I will go through the COVID haze just to appear with you. So
yeah, I mean,
Andy didn't mute himself.
You turn your video off to yawn. Is that?
I didn't want to be seen to yawn, but we hear.
Yeah, I was going to say, you say be professional. We hear you yawning.
Oh well, this isn't like you said to us before we came on. This is not like your shitty podcast. Be professional.
I mean, I didn't.
Are you talking about the Gooners podcast, Andy?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
You can plug all the live long day in a bit. We'll get there. Oh dearie me. And James Cook, good to have you back on the show. It's been a infinitely long time, and as I said before you came on, I wish it was under better circumstances. But oh my god, Mike is stripping. Oh Jesus Christ, ruining James's intro. That's fine. Go on, James. How are you, mate?
I'm very well, thanks you, Tom. Thanks, Tom. This is quite the introduction to the show.
Yeah, I mean, I've done this thing now where I've tried to be a little bit more organised, as you three know, and that means making a Google sheet by which you can book to come on to the podcast, just so I know actually what I'm doing. And these two decided to book in the same week, which I knew was a mistake as soon as I set up that Google sheet. So
we shouldn't have let us request access.
How long did it take you to make that shirt? I feel like you say you're getting tired very easily. Did you get like to the end of the hour and then needed a break? Or?
I started this actually at halftime yesterday, and it was just finished in time for the podcast.
Oh God, Jesus Christ!
Is it blue to fit in with the Hanukkah theme of the week, Mike?
It is blue and white. You know, it's night 5 of Hanukkah, which is one night for every foul throw that Hector Bellerin has this season.
Yeah. What is going on? Says Chris. This is not the type of consummate broadcasting they're used to at the moment. That is the risk we take. Oh, for goodness' sake! What does that even say? I can't even see it. Everything sucks. Oh, okay. To be fair, I appreciate the fact that you're following the rules of kind of keeping this as highbrow as possible without swear words. So that's
it's
great.
medium. It's medium brow.
Medium brow. Yeah. Anyway, let's actually get into the game and talk about what happened. James, I'm going to start with you because it's just the obvious choice to start with based upon what's happened already. But what did you make of yesterday's game? Was it kind of what you were expecting? And yeah, just give me your ultimate thoughts on it.
To be honest, I really didn't expect us to lose. No matter how bad things have been, I really didn't expect us to lose. I thought the performance was going to be pretty drab as soon as I saw that team lineup. And I think we were all pretty dismayed it was such a predictable team, and thereby you're going to see a predictable performance. So disappointed in that sense, and to lose it in the way that we did is really frustrating. But, I mean, the argument is shortly before that red card happens, we had so many good opportunities to score. Looked like we were going to score, then that moment of madness happens and the game completely turns on its head. But again, another really poor result. 4 losses at home now. It's just looking disastrous, to be honest, mate.
It's horrific. And I have been very much on the case of we need to be patient. We need to just wait until we've got better players in the squad. But having a show what I did earlier with Johnny Cochran, people check it out if you haven't already. It's just boiled down to you can only allow the short term to suffer for so long. And it's a case of, yes, the long-term project could work. And there's signs I feel that have happened that make me feel that there is potential there. But Andy, you can only let these results continue to get worse and worse. And when we've come up against Burnley, which if you look at our next 4 fixtures and beyond, was our easiest game at home to a side that we've never lost to at the Emirates at home in the league. And at what point do you say it's time to cut the rope? It's time to move on?
From Arteta, you mean?
Yeah, life.
Well, Tom, we don't need to cut away life, all right? It's just at the end of the day, it's just a game. No, I don't know. Like, I reflect on it and I think to myself, the majority of these players have failed for 4 managers now. So I'm not at the point where I want to cut Arteta away because I think that he needs a couple more windows. I think the players that he's brought in with his team, right, have been our best players this season, or at least shown that they can be top players in the Premier League. But when you look at this crop of players, they've failed for so many managers before him. And granted, each manager we could look and say, well, tactics, whatever. But it's still the common denominators of players. And so for me, I say, I just say I'm not ready.
I know what you just said.
I just saw it. But here's the thing, though. Like,
oh no, Andy, not this again.
but let's bring in. If we bring in another manager, does it change? I mean, 4 managers now, and it's just been absolutely awful.
It depends. Does the new manager start Willian? Does he start Xhaka constantly? And
that's just it. That's what I was going to say. Like, what bothers me about Arteta is that we know that that some of these players aren't good enough, but he continues to play the players. So why isn't Reece Nelson playing? Why can't we drop Aubameyang to the bench and start Eddie and give him a wake up call? That's my problem with it. But I don't think that's a sackable offense quite yet.
Mike,
I think it's heading that way.
What do you you say it's heading that way? I mean, your T-shirt kind of gives us a clue as to how you're feeling, I suppose.
Well, it could have said, the T-shirt that said Arteta out's already taken. Also, I'm not 100% there, but you saw me pretty much get off the fence yesterday in our chat when that lineup came out. And look, I am a fence sitter and I'm a stick my head in the sander. My normal routine when we have a performance like yesterday is to just go off social media, act like it didn't happen, and keep supporting the team and rooting for us in our next game. And that last part isn't going to change. But, the moment that lineup came out, it shows that nothing that's gone wrong right now, nothing with discipline, nothing with focus, nothing with promoting players who have shown a little bit more drive, albeit against lesser opponents. Nothing is permeating into his mind right now. He's just, I don't know why he can't mix the lineup up a little bit more. I mean, it cannot get worse. I mean, I know that it could, but it doesn't seem possible. Every single one of those players that gets an automatic start on Sunday afternoons for our team has an underling, a youth player, or a Mainsley or somebody like that who's ready to at least give 90 minutes to this club and not just take half the game off or walk around sulking and looking like you've downed tools, which is my favorite expression. I just wish it wasn't happening here at our club. But Arteta can't escape the blame from that anymore. George Graham did not wait for transfer windows and continue to play Charlie Nicholas and Graham Ricks and Kenny Sansom and Stevie Williams in the lineup every year for the first 2 years or even the first 7 months after he got in. He did what he thought needed to be done. He put players out there and promoted players from youth and brought players in from lesser teams that wanted to die for the badge. And
at least if you play the youth, at least if you play the youth and they fail and we lose 1-0 to Burnley, you can point to it and say, hey, the youth lost, right? That's not the case. It's madness what he's doing.
It's insanity.
Yeah, it is.
It's the definition of
it. And here's the question for you guys: Is Burnley as good as some of the teams that we played in Europa?
Probably better than any of the teams in our group. But
are they marginally better though? Are they miles better?
No, they're not miles better.
I wouldn't say miles. I think they're. Right. I think that Rapid Vienna and Molde arguably are better offensively than Burnley, but that wasn't an issue for us. Like teams, our defence, even though I know we're losing games and we're dropping points, our defence is not the main issue, is it really? Though we're not looking at these games going, oh God, we need to sort the defence out. That is not the problem at the moment. I mean, James, when you look at the attack and we're just throwing cross after cross after cross, and it is just a continual monotonous way that we keep playing, and then Arteta comes out after the games and says things like, they've done exactly what I asked them to do, this is what I wanted, they're trying to fight, they're doing everything they can, we're dominating the games, we're creating chances. That's what I think gets me the most, is that I want to support this guy and I want to back him, and I have done. And I've really stuck my neck out on the line a lot with Arteta. But when he comes out and says things that I just don't agree with, in those sense of saying that we're doing the right things by dominating games when clearly there is systemic issues throughout the way that we're trying to play, does that not just completely undermine what he is trying to do ultimately?
Yeah, I think he's got a way of playing that maybe is a bit premature at the moment. I think he's got a real fixed idea in his head of where he wants this team to be, and the reality is we just don't have the personnel to do it. We made two really good signings in the summer transfer window in Partey and Gabriel. Willian, I mean, divides opinion massively, but I think the majority of people were just so unhappy with how he's performing this season. When you look at the players that we've got on that right-hand side in Pepe and Nelson, and it's continuously Willian that's picked on that flank, it's incredibly frustrating to see. But I think just this sudden change to four at the back, we were all calling out for it. But the reality is we played so much better with the three at the back. And if you look at the games we played so well in last season, Wolves away from home, City, Chelsea, Liverpool, the goals we scored as well, the combination play, the moves through the middle of the park, we played some really, really good stuff. Don't see any of that anymore. Don't see any of it at all. And they're the same players. I mean, if not arguably lesser players. I mean, you take out Gabriel, you put in Mustafi. He's a guy that had a brilliant end to the season before his injury. Xhaka, we were talking about him being one of the most improved players under Arteta. What has gone so badly wrong there for these guys that have seemingly become redeemed to have now just fallen away once again? And we're just seeing the same pattern that has emerged with previous managers, with Emery towards the back end of Wenger's reign. It's just, I just find it bizarre, mate. I can't put my finger on what exactly is wrong with this team.
Dressing room.
Yeah, well, the thing is, if you think the dressing room is the issue, though, is that we might say that there's problems within the dressing room, there's characters that have made issues, but we still have to work out how we got to that stage. So I suppose that's where we take the conversation next, is the problem the way in which Arteta has handled the selection of the squad? Because the piece that Chris Wheatley put out on Football London that told us effectively that David Luiz and Arteta are now not speaking, like they haven't spoken for the last 2 weeks, directly to one another anyway. There is a situation whereby Socrates and Ozil, who were left out of the Premier League squad, are influential figures and well-respected figures in the dressing room, and them still being at the club and speaking to the players and obviously not being particularly happy about their situation is having kind of a bleed into the rest of the team's morale. Now, we have to look at those decisions and say, individually, I suppose, what we can do now is look at those. If we start off with the Ozil situation, I know it's not a nice topic to talk about, but it's something that I think is worth talking about now, because Arsenal are at a situation where we lack lots of creativity, specifically in the middle of the pitch. I don't think that Ozil changes things massively. I don't think that's the argument that I want to put forward for Ozil. What the argument for Ozil is to say that his lack of inclusion whatsoever for what we are quoted to be told as footballing reasons, when we lack any form of central creativity. Like, there's no other player that's an alternative besides maybe Emile Smith-Rowe to me that plays as an out-and-out number 10 at times. And even Emile Smith-Rowe plays more out wide. You've got other players that could play in the middle, like Willian or Saka, but they're not. They're playing out wide. And we're trying to kind of force Lacazette now to play out of position in this number 10 role, or this second striker role, whatever you want to call it, when we've got a guy that actually is an out-and-out number 10, has played that position for years, did do it quite well at the start, and has gradually, if we're being very honest, trailed off ever since kind of the contract was signed, and a little bit before that too. But the argument to not put him in the squad, is silly, and I feel betrayed in a way by the fans, because I think we could all see that it's a financial reason. I think we can all see that they're saving a lot of money through his wages and through appearance bonuses not being paid out. I think that's very clear as the reason why he's not in the squad. But don't come out and tell us as fans that it's footballing reasons as to why he's not included. This isn't a plea to get Ozil playing week in, week out. That's not what I want. I just want clarity from the club to come out and say that the reasons why he's not in there is because we made a mistake, which I know is never going to happen.
They can't do that.
But they shouldn't lie. They should just stay stum about the whole thing and just move on.
Yeah.
But
it's so frustrating.
Media won't let them do that, though. The fan base won't let them. I mean, so they have to eventually say something, and it's clearly a public relations lie, and that disturbs the dressing room because of how much influence those guys have, which is where I go back to just praying that we could just, for a lot of reasons, that we could just fast forward to June 30th and just be done with it. Because at that point, you still got bad apples.
We can't, but there's so much that can happen between now and June.
But what bothers me is the people who are paying his wages ultimately are us. And we're the ones who don't get to see the player play. We're the ones when we're 1-0 down at Burnley and we need someone to come out. Well, the last 44 days or whatever you said, Tom, about not winning a Premier League game. We're the ones that need and pay for his wages to come on in the 60th minute and change a match, right? Oh, we don't like the fact he doesn't track back and defend. If we're trailing a match 1-0, we don't need that. We need that player who can turn around and open up the match. So that's on the board to owe us an explanation. I'm sick of this whole footballing reasons bullshit. I'm sorry, but you can argue whether or not Ozil should be at the club. I think June 30th, we pat him on the back and say thank you for your tenure, but he can help us this season because we're in desperate need. And before that, he was one of the best number 10s in the world, and he's an Arsenal player, and it's just bullshit that he's not featuring for us, at least as an impact sub. Absolute bullshit.
James, what do you think?
Yeah, it's. I mean, I feel like I've spoken about it and read so much about it. It's just getting beyond tiresome, to be honest, the Ozil situation. But I mean, it's just bizarre. I mean, I think the club obviously wanted him to leave in the summer, as they did with so many other players, the likes of Socrates, and to not register them in the squad, no matter the fact you want them to leave. They're senior players. Like Socrates has played at the highest levels, definitely come towards the twilight of his career, but still a Greek international, and Ozil, I mean, still a very capable footballer, no matter what your opinion is of him. And to not include those two, I just think it's just an absolute joke, to be honest. But it's going to be interesting now because obviously we're in a situation where Ozil can be re-registered for the Premier League squad. Be very funny if he does get registered again. I tell you, that would be absolutely hilarious. I don't think the club will do it because he'll make him look so.
Can
I think they can.
Look so bad.
Oh no. No,
there's no going
absolutely.
I didn't mean can they as it literally like possible. Yeah. I meant like can they actually do that like for the reputation and the hit they would take for that.
I don't think so.
They're not known for admitting wrongdoing.
I think he'll be gone this January on a loan somewhere. I think he'll get loaned out.
DC United or Fenerbahce.
I think I know. I think he'll head to Mike territory and they
He's gonna get hugely fat and Jewish. No, is that what Mike territory? I mean, we know what you mean by Mike territory.
You missed the COVID positive part of that too.
Oh, that's true. Another wonderful thing about my life. He isn't going to go anywhere in January because he can get another 6 months out of this power play that he's now on, watching everything fall apart around the decision not to put him in, and he's not going to jeopardize having that.
He'll still get that if he moves somewhere else. He's just in a different. He's just not sitting at home playing. What's that? What is he like? Minecraft? Fortnite.
Who's going to take him though? I don't.
Yeah,
think...
that's the question.
He's not even played for 10 months.
Yeah, but the problem for me is like we heard in the summer we have all these players who can play in the number 10. Willian, Smith Rowe, shit you could throw in. I mean, why did we let Lucas Torreira go? He only played as a number 10 when Unai Emery was here.
That didn't work out that well, though.
It didn't, but still. But so it's like, why haven't we plug and place those players in? That's what I don't understand. Like we've just been missing such creativity. It's just I don't get it.
Yannick Mack in the chat says, are we more fluid with Ozil, yes or no? Now, fluidity is an interesting term to use because I think under Arteta, we're actually very fluid in how the formation changes continuously. It moves to a back 3, to a back 4, to a back 5 if necessary. If you mean in attack, I don't think Ozil necessarily brings fluidity. I think he offers more creativity, but it depends by your definition of the word. It's interesting to talk about why the club didn't just look to say, pay up his contract last summer, get him out of the club now. Because if you're not going to play him, just pay up the contract. Don't let him fester for a year.
Was I not promoting that view on Twitter last summer? I mean, I was doing spreadsheets to figure out how much.
I think it's like 10 million, isn't it? Something like
how
that.
Much less than what would be necessary for him to be able to go someplace and make more money. A lot more money with the additional wages that he'd earned there, and it's the only explanation is that Ozil would rather just stay here, sit at home, hide, because frankly he did that a lot when he was being included in the squad, and whether it was hiding on the pitch or through these variety of questionable injuries, he would rather do exactly. I think he's perfectly happy right now with his power play, like someone said in the chat earlier. And when he actually has to go back and either retire in July or prove that he actually can still play, he will lose all the leverage that he has right now to have the high ground. And he's actually going to have to prove something that he might not be able to prove. And at that point, F him.
And I think it's just how the club. Yeah, I just understand how the club lets this situation occur. You've had a whole something. This is where Edu, and I back Edu a lot because I look at some of the signings he's made in Gabriel and Partey, which was him last summer, was a lot more Raul. And I look at him as one of the biggest options. James, that was the worst way to hide a yawn I've ever seen.
Sorry.
Yeah, bro.
Worse than Andy.
Your face just contorted into.
Stop the camera.
It's been a long day, man. Been a long day.
Unbelievable. I mean, you could do what Andy does, just turn off your mic, but just breathe heavily into your microphone. Turn off your video.
That was like one time we had Lee Judges on, and he was eating chicken for dinner during the podcast.
What?
He turns off the camera, but we hear
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Lee Judges is bringing me the only pot of comedy that I need to cheer me up. I can't repeat and I can't play the video because it is just there's too many expletives in the meme of our good boy Lee Judges. But if you haven't seen them, some of my favourites. Andy, what was the one you put in the group? Was the caption for it?
It was when Boris sends you back into tier 3.
Oh yeah, Boris putting us back into tier 3. And then one I saw on Twitter was Voldemort when Harry Potter destroys another one of the Horcruxes.
Oh, that's harsh.
It's not just the gift that keeps on giving. I couldn't love the guy more.
Yeah, and the thing, we're all mates with Lee, and I know the thing is, it doesn't bother him at all, and he takes all of it on the chin. And he
told me a long time ago. He's like, my father told me that if they're not taking the piss out of you, then they don't care about you. And so
exactly.
I sent it in a different group, and someone wrote, "Lee is such a melt. Plays for the local vet side and thinks he's the local celeb. What a cock." I cut and pasted and forwarded it to him.
We love you, Lee. He's coming back on the show.
And I feel bad for Lee right now for what he's going through. Arsenal are making me angry because of what they're doing to Lee.
Oh, I mean, I went to the game with him. We went to Palace away together when we lost 3-0. And I think, Mike, you were there as well.
Yeah. I just reposted the video because I think it applies more now than it did then.
I was sitting next to Lee, and honestly, he people think I've seen people tweeting saying he's putting it on in those videos. He is not putting it on. That is what he is like in every game. Genuinely, it's scary.
He sent voice notes to us, in WhatsApp where he is livid. No, I have a question for you guys, right? We talked a second ago about how Arteta may or may not have lost the locker room. Do we think that some of that might be because it's kind of obvious who he wants to ship off and who he doesn't? I mean, he said it a lot.
Why is he still playing those guys, though, then?
Well, and that's part of it, Mike, right? You try and keep him happy, whatever. But I don't know. Do you think that's part of the reason, though? because
you
he
really
knows,
want to freeze those guys out, freeze them out, and don't let them get into the locker room. And
It's phones though, isn't it? Social. It's they're texting each other.
Oh yeah,
I know, but at least you're sending a consistent message through your actions, which right now he's not. And look, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but there's just plenty that's going on right, in front of the scenes, and it's a toxic situation. And the only way, if we're going to back Arteta through this, then he needs to start showing some balls and taking measures to punish the people who are being toxic, to deprioritize playing people who are just not getting it done, and give people a chance.
He's going to get forced to here in the next couple of weeks, right? Because we're going to have to rotate with all.
Wednesday's going to be the best lineup we've seen starting a game, and it's only because Bellerin's been suspended for accumulation of foul throws, and Jacques is not going to be out there. So, I mean,
when is Pepe back?
Wednesday.
He's Wednesday.
And we're going to see a more Europa League lineup on Wednesday, just because it's the Sunday, Thursday, Sunday, Wednesday type of thing. So it's almost. Again, it's going to be forced upon Arteta, and maybe we pull out a result on Wednesday as a result of it. But that if there was no game on Wednesday, and our next game was against Southampton on Sunday, we'd be playing the exact same 11s minus Xhaka and Bellerin.
Well, let's talk about that, because they're not going to be playing. So these next 3 games obviously is an opportunity.
I prayed over my menorah that we would get to see a game without the two of them.
We're at the situation now where Arteta is going to be forced to pick a midfield that doesn't involve Granit Xhaka in, which I'm a little bit. In a way, it's a shame, because I would have liked to have seen whether he actually had the front to leave Xhaka out of a lineup going into these next few games, which we're not going to find out.
Spoiler.
No.
Yeah,
spoiler alert, Xhaka's not going to be there, and neither's Bellerin. So, James, I want to know kind of how you approach this, because Southampton under Hasenhüttl are looking fantastic right now. They're in form. They're playing some really good football. Che Adams and Danny Ings are clicking really well together. James Ward-Prowse seems like every ball he puts into the box is going to go onto the end of one of the Southampton heads. Vestergaard is a huge aerial threat in the box that we're going to have to deal with, although our set-piece defensive routines have been pretty good this season. With the 2 that are out, in Xhaka and in Bellerin, who for you slots into those positions?
I think this game's going to be so tough. Southampton have been, all credit to them, they are a fantastic side. They're probably one of the best sides I've watched in the league this season. I'm loving what they're doing. And I'm also buzzing to see Walcott doing so well. I hope he doesn't do so well on Wednesday night. But, I mean, you've got to hand it to him. He's kind of come out of nowhere to be a regular starter for what is a very good team at the moment. And I think beating them is just, it doesn't even look plausible at the minute. But, this is Arsenal. Anything can happen. And in those holes that we've got, I think it's pretty obvious who feels in a right back. Cedric's not been bad at all this season, really. I mean, we know what we're getting with him, and I think he'll start right back. But in midfield, I think that's where it really gets interesting. And I'd persist with Oneni. I thought he was stupid for what he did in the game against Burnley, that foul where he should undoubtedly have got sent off. But he seems like a player that we can't really drop at the moment. And I'd like to see Maitland-Niles in there alongside him. I think he's a player that really does deserve his chance in the midfield, because it's so obvious that we favour Thomas Partey and we want him to start every single game. But the closest thing we've got to him is Maitland-Niles. Whether you think that sounds ridiculous or not, he's so athletic, makes those bursts going forwards. I mean, even when he plays in midfields, ironically, against Southampton in, I think it was the FA Cup many, many moons ago, and he had an excellent game in midfield there. I'd love to see him start in this game in the midfields. But apart from that, I mean, it's not just there. I'd like to see things shaken up a little bit. Up top, I'd like to see a Smith Rowe thrown in, maybe see Nketiah start. If Reece Nelson's fit, I'd love to get him in there. Just drop Willie in for once. Not that I thought he was the worst performer against Burnley, but I'd get Pepe back in there and just see a big shake-up. I don't think we'll see that many wholesale changes, but I think we've got to force Arteta's hand with this one sometime soon.
Yeah.
Is there any way we can? Is there any way that we can get Lucas Torreira back in time for Wednesday? If the rumors are true,
thing in it is these rumors, like, they crop up out of nowhere, and it's one of those that does feel believable as well. It's like, because he's not.
Are we not sure that that's true? I thought that was pretty reliable.
I haven't. Who's the source that we've got?
I think it's Drew.
Okay, that's Drew. Yeah, that's reliable then. It did just pop up on my screen, to be fair, and now it's gone. But here we go. So, Danny from the Burke Wonderlands tweeted it out, but he hasn't put the source down. I'll have a look. But what do we think about that? Like, he comes back. That's another foreign player that's on the roster, and we could then see left out. Do you then look to give him another loan somewhere else? You have to see what he's doing. Maybe he comes back with this kind of renewed sort of sense that, I mean, to be honest, if we're being very honest and looking at our deep midfielders, I put Torreira in over Xhaka right now, based on Xhaka's form. Put Torreira in over Ceballos and over El Neni. If we get the Torreira that we got at the start of that time, and there's no guarantees you're going to get that, and I understand that. But if we play him in his right position, which Unai Emery just failed to do at the end of his tenure, and when Arteta came in, he was very much married to this idea of Ceballos and Xhaka as a partnership which has now crumbled. Could it turn out to be kind of a blessing in disguise that we get the renaissance period of this guy, or am I just really kind of hoping too?
I think you're hoping, but we could end the season with the triangle of Torreira, Guendouzi, and Ozil. So the hope is there. The hope is there. I think when Lucas Torreira was actually deployed in that role of sitting in front of the back four and just being a nuisance, he was absolutely outstanding. Why we just didn't stick with that, I don't know. But it is a little worrying that, he goes off on this loan and something's not happening. It's very strange. But I don't know. I'm worried for Wednesday because it could be another embarrassing.
I mean, while I've just been looking up this Torreira thing, it's just come to my attention that he liked. Do you know the fake Mesut Ozil?
Yeah.
Need help. Torreira liked the tweet.
I know, and that isn't make upable. I mean, that happened.
No, he actually did like it. Like, you can see it on his profile. It's gone now, but you could. There's print screens. But that for in itself. And I was talking to Johnny earlier about kind of the Saliba situation. I was shocked that Arsenal media put out that video with the quiz with Lacazette, where he effectively turns around and he's like, am I even an Arsenal player? Because I'm not being picked. Like, how the fact that goes...
See, I don't watch any of that PR stuff.
I know how stringent Arsenal are in terms of kind of a negative press, like, and with working within the club, how they retake things, they get people to say different things. You're not allowed to say certain stuff, and I'm so shocked that they did that. But it's really surprising. I mean, Saliba in itself is a situation. The latest we know about it now is that, according to The Athletic this morning, he's in favour of going to a UK-based club on loan in January rather than going back to Saint-Etienne. The club has no intention of selling him. So all of those stories that came out from Eurosport, I believe, were utter rubbish. And the club do still very much have...
I only listen to rumours from 101 Great Goals. That's the only source that I go to for my Arsenal news.
Cheers, mate. I appreciate they're a very good source of information.
Although you did write a fairly clickbaity article about a week or two ago, and I kept it to myself.
Which one was that?
The one that where you were asking everyone to click on stuff.
I do that with every one of them. I don't know. I don't know. It could have been any of them. But I just write the news, Mike. That's all I do. I just write the news.
It stood out in its unusualness because that isn't.
Although I did enjoy writing a piece about a goalkeeper the other day that's hit the woodwork twice in the space of a month in Holland, which is
his own woodwork.
No. Like he's gone up.
Was his name Petr Cech? What's his name?
I just saw that video. I just saw that video on Twitter today where he turned around and literally almost kicked the ball into our net. Against City, I think.
It's crazy.
Can I just say that Owen is in the chat room just giving people large, and then Christopher Fung just wrote, I would do the same, Ian. So it's carried over from our pod to this one.
Jesus Christ.
I'd just like to apologize to James Cook right now because I don't think he signed up for this.
When I saw James booked onto this one, I was like, okay, well, at least we'll have some sensible conversation from James. In edgeways. So.
The younger you get, the more sense you apparently speak. It's just that I've just completely gone mental.
We are the next generation coming through. We are the ones that...
Well, the future is bright. The past, the present is diabolical.
Deary me. So in kind of where we go ahead from this, and I want to ask you the same question is, I'm going to start with James for obvious reasons. But do you think that and you look at like where the club are at, how they treated the Emery situation at the end of that tenure. What do you think actually needs to happen for the club to genuinely take action and move on from Arteta? And if at all, do you see it happening no matter what ahead of January?
Such a difficult one to answer, because I think the club are going to be in such a difficult situation if they do get rid of Arteta, for the pure and simple reason. I mean, who else is there available? And I mean, the one common denominator, as we all know, is this group of players. I think we've got the foundations of a really, really good squad. And I know that sounds ludicrous given how poor the results have been, but you look at Leno, Tierney, Gabriel, Partey, Aubameyang, Martinelli, Reece Nelson, Smith Rowe. I mean, players coming through, Saka. The core is there. I mean, the core and the foundations are there for us to go on and succeed. It's just those one players that we want to sift out that we can't seem to get rid of, that are causing so many problems. And I think even though it doesn't, I mean, we've spoken about it a lot, but you don't think these things will affect the squad as much as they do. But the Ozil situation, the Saliba situation, the Guendouzi situation, even the Torreira situation to some extent, where these players have just been excluded. These are human beings that have probably got a lot of friends within the team. They all talk. As you say, they all talk together on socials. I mean, it's pretty obvious that there's going to be some disharmony within the team, and I think that's becoming clearer and clearer and clearer. And I think that situation in the summer where we've tried to get rid of players, the likes of Socrates, the likes of Ozil, and they've remained in the team, is causing problems, is causing friction. Because you look, everything was going well before the summer. Everything was going really well. We had some great wins, won the FA Cup, had that win against Fulham, and then the wheels have just come off, just almost overnight. And I can't explain why that is, apart from there's been some massive breakout within the team. But I think, him and some others. But I think Arteta's situation, I think the club would be balmy to get rid of him, to be honest. I mean, what do you do if you get rid of him? Who do you bring in? Well, you can't overhaul the whole squad.
That's what people say. But how many times have we seen big clubs lose their manager, go to another club who have a manager that is doing very well, and go, look, we want you, and we'll buy out your contract? That happens quite regularly, does it not? So
it happens every week at Southampton.
True. So why don't I see your argument, James, and I get it 100%. And I think there's also an argument to say that there's no guarantee that in 12 months' time, if we got a new manager, because of the situation with the squad, we wouldn't be back in this same situation we are now. But what I would say is that the counter argument to say that who is there, do you not think that a club can go to somewhere else and say, look, we're Arsenal, which I know doesn't count for too much, but apparently we're told that it does still by fairly reputable sources, that Arsenal is still a very, very attractive place and lots of managers and coaches want to be there, that we couldn't go somewhere and say, look, we're going to buy out your contract and we want you to come to Arsenal.
What manager want to come here? You get paid millions of pounds for mediocre performances and you get tenure.
We have to change that to come to the Arsenal and make and do what George Graham did. And I hate to keep making the comparison, but we will give you the keys to a program and I don't want to say process, but we'll give you the keys to just make this team into what you want. We'll give you the financial backing to suck up some losses, more losses, and just reinvent this team in your image. I thought that's what they were doing with Arteta. I really thought.
Mike, it's only been a year. How much to reinvent? Like, you have to think, we have a lot of players on such high wages that is unattractive to other clubs. So would a club come in and buy Xhaka for £7 million? Absolutely, they probably would. He would improve.
No, so we need the financial.
They want to pay him. So you can't. Here's my problem with the people who want Arteta out is, the next manager who comes in, as James said, you're inheriting a lot of shitty players. The common denominator here is the players. And until we can move them out and cycle in new players, it's going to be the same thing. It's been 4 managers.
I understand that, but what about look at the short term, Andy? Like, we are losing and we are not scoring goals. And if we're honest, I know we're saying that the squad is a problem, but you look at these players on paper. Even Arteta and previously Emery has got more from this group, and we are a lot better than 15th, and we still should be beating Burnley at home. Like, that is, I think that's a legitimate retort.
True, but then if another manager comes in, when all of a sudden we're on the upswing, then next season we start off this poor, do we just fire them again? Like, if we're allowing back in December, we were all positive in the fact that we were going to allow him to come in, reinvent the system. everyone was on the same page that the club was broken from Ivan and all those other people. It's been 12 months. Rome wasn't built in a day, right? So we can't rebuild Arsenal in 12 months. Look how long it took Liverpool to rebuild. And Liverpool were in a lot better financial situation because they sold off one or two of their players for, God knows how much money. So I agree. Like, it's frustrating, but I'm not at that point yet because he needs transfer windows to get rid of players. And this summer, he's going to have a windfall of cash.
And 2.5 to 3 weeks ago, I was in the exact same situation. But there are things that you can do within the present construct of the 30 people that are on Arsenal's books, of where maybe 6 of them aren't able to be selected, and however many of them are on the Europa League versus the Premier League squad. There are things that you can do from week to week, from weekend to midweek, to try to change things up. It isn't gonna win us the league because we still have the squad we have, but there are things that can be done that are not being done. And the longer that goes on, the more you start to wonder whether, is he suddenly, does he really think that Willian deserves to be out there? Does he think that Xhaka is good enough to be out there? Or is he just playing them because there's nobody else? And my argument is there are other people, and he's still not doing that. And he's pigeonholing Mainsley and Smith Rowe, who may be not the best example because I think he's had injury issues. He's pigeonholing some of these guys who, Balogun, for example, we don't know what he has, but we know he's got heart so far. And I'd like to see it more often, not just for 15 minutes on Thursday in February.
Have this group of players legitimately put in a run consistently to challenge for top 4? No. Like, when was the last time?
They almost did it under Emery until the capitulation at the end of the season.
Right. But so, again, it just goes back to the players.
It does go back to the players. And I get that. I was, as Mike said, 2.5 weeks ago, I was putting out that was my argument. That was my retort.
It was mine too. And then we got four more Sunday lineups of the same.
Tom, let me ask you this. This is the important question. Are you Xhaka out yet?
Am I Xhaka out?
Yeah.
If someone
the two of you are
because
probably,
we're the last two standing. Tom. I want to know where you're at.
You're Arsenal Twitter's biggest Xhaka fan.
If someone comes along with a 10 million penny bid for Xhaka, I am taking it. Same. I'm taking it, and I think that amounts to what, 100 grand. So I think, really, it's for me. It's just I can't with Xhaka. Especially when I was talking to Johnny earlier, who's completely Xhaka out, and it has been for a very long time. And I have said that last season, Xhaka during those 6 months was integral. And it frustrates me sometimes that people can't be objective. People can't turn around and say that, yeah, to be fair, I hold my hands up. Xhaka was actually quite good at the end of last season. And if we're honest, he really was one of our best players, to the point that without him, we really weren't winning games and we weren't picking up points. And the problem is that he's been so bad this season. Andy, even I know you like me, were big fans, and I'm sure you still are. But we have to admit he's been horrific this season, and that's where this bleeds into the Arteta argument. Is that I want to back the guy, but after the game, I felt betrayed. As someone that's really backed Arteta, I felt betrayed that he'd picked him again. I felt betrayed that he'd picked Willian again, because I'm sitting there telling people that this guy's a good coach, this guy can improve players, this guy has improved players, but he's making consistent mistakes and not learning from them, and that is the biggest sign of an inexperienced coach.
Well,
and that's always been the biggest counter argument.
All of the disciplinary things on and off the pitch, the thing, and Chris Wheatley knows what's happening. These aren't just rampant, silly, made up rumors. So, there's it's not just about the team selection; it's everything combined with that. That's just unraveling, and it just shows me that I don't know. I don't know how much longer he can hold on without making a wholesale change and making some tough decisions. But
it's just
and I don't want to just blame one person. And the worst part about this, and you're going to kill me for saying this, I'm not going to be specific, but all of the see you next Tuesdays who want to push out their chest on and be X or Y person out before anybody else, and use that as a dividing stick to beat fellow Arsenal supporters on. If you turn out to be right in the long run, that doesn't mean that you're not a sea bag, which is a new thing I just made up. I mean, it's a cross between a D bag and the other thing that I'll wait until my pod to say. But I mean, it just bothers me that in many cases some of these malcontent and dividers are actually right on the substance, and they're being proven right on the substance, and that's probably the hardest pill to swallow at this point.
The thing is with that, and that's what really frustrates me, because I'm going to show you an image that I got. I've shown you already. It's in the. I put it in the WhatsApp group of my face yesterday when Yannick Mack said the words "We told you so." I'm going to try and get it up in a second.
Well, and I'm not including him in there, by the way. Because I don't know him.
No, of course, and people in the chat box are long-time listeners and long-time disagreeers with me on lots of things, and that's been, and the fact that they stay here is that they know they can have an alternative opinion and it's fine. Whereas you can go to other places, have an alternative opinion, and you'll be blocked. It's as simple as that. It's going to be me and you.
This is your worst nightmare.
And I found it now, so there you go. There's my face when Yannick Mack said, "Tom, we told you so," which is just the perfect. Andy's going to come back in and see this image now. So that was me yesterday after the game yesterday, because it's just so. That's how I felt, because, and what frustrates me is a lot of the people that are saying like "we told you so" were saying that Arteta should be sacked after we won an FA Cup. Like, it is, in my view, idiotic to have thought that we should be getting rid of the manager then, after evidence has turned around and said to you that, yeah, look, things aren't going well now, we're losing game after game after game. You aren't a flip-flop for suddenly turning around and going, I don't think things are going too well. We might have to make a change. Like, that doesn't make you like weak or something for changing your mind. You're just basing your opinion off new evidence.
I would rather be happy than mad. I'd rather be optimistic than pessimistic. I'd rather not get into arguments about whether I'm part of the problem or not, or whether other people are part of the problem, because I happily accept mediocrity. I mean, that stuff, and I didn't mean to take a huge left turn with this, but like you can come to the conclusion that something is broken without having to have seen it first, and without having to have called other people out over it. And look, it's my opinion at this point. I want, starting on Wednesday, to see something magically click, but it's so degeneratively broken down at this point that everyone, I would just literally start from zero to the extent that is possible under the laws of contracts, and just blow the whole thing up. Go for the first draft pick and start from scratch with 5 or 6 pieces that we think that we can count on, and we've got those pieces.
But the thing is, Arsenal we're not a Man City at the end of the day. We're not a Man City. We're not a Chelsea. We do not have the financial funds, and we don't have the players to sell for a big rebuild like that. And the thing is,
and that's our own damn stupid fault.
And I'd trust me, you, Andy, and James to sit down. And write down a list of players that you would sign, a list of players that you would get out. And a lot of them might make sense with what you want to see at the club. But even if we went through a huge rebuild where we got rid of 15 players during a summer, we know that there are no guarantees that the club is going to make the right decisions in the transfer market to bring in the right players. We've had good signs, and I think there are good signs with Gabriel and Thomas Partey coming in. But then there's Willian, and that stuff like that really worries me for the long-term future, is that we might spend lots of money on players that aren't actually going to help us, and there is no guarantee of change. And then people want Arteta out, but they're forgetting that they're wanting the manager out, and the people that put the manager that they didn't want in charge are still here, and they're going to employ the next manager as well. It's not people's choice, and that's a big problem, is that we might just have to stick with the devil that we know for the moment, and then hope things turn around with more evidence. As we say, it's been a very short amount of time. James, I completely agree with what you were saying earlier. I think it will be catastrophic to get rid of him, but it might be so catastrophic in the current state of things not to get rid of him that it could get even worse. And it's a really horrible kind of paradox situation that you're left in, where you don't really know which way to turn or which way is going to turn out to be the better option. No one really knows what the right decision is right now, because we could sack him, get someone else in that's even worse with the crop of players that we've got. I kind of want to talk about one of the players. I tweeted him before. I don't really do this.
No, I was shocked when I saw that. I'm like,
I know. I don't
you're now tagging players.
I know. I'm not the type, but I just tweeted because it's really got to me, because I struggle with Aubameyang in terms of his leadership. Like, I struggle with him as a captain. I struggle with what he projects socially. Like, I have no trouble if he wants to buy these supercars, these clothes. Whatever he done in his private life is completely down to him. And I think that footballers deserve a lot more respect about their personal lives than they actually get. But what I'm saying is that if you are the captain, I just feel that you should be a little bit more public during the situations. I look at the likes of Gabriel coming out after the game and tweeting saying, "I'm sorry." And I'm not saying that's what I necessarily want Aubameyang to do. But he hasn't done an interview. He's not done a post-match press conference. He's not done anything. And as a captain, I've seen David Luiz come out and apologise for a red card. I've seen Nicola Pepe put on Instagram that he apologised for his red card he got against Leeds. I've seen Joe Willock wheeled out time after time, and like a young kid coming out and facing the media. Yeah, and it is. That feels like what it is. Is that Joe Willock's coming out? He's speaking to me. Kieran Tierney did it yesterday as well. Where I feel like I'm inclined to ask, where is our captain? Why is he not? James, is just tell me what you think about that kind of thing. Am I overreacting? Am I just getting caught up in the whole of the furore of the situation, or is there a justification in asking why Aubameyang's not been more public with what he has to think about things?
Can't believe you talked about his mom though on that tweet. I mean, that was bang out of order.
Shut up.
What was the tweet?
I just said, what did I say?
You just said, "Where are you, Aubameyang?"
Yeah, I said, "Hello, you there?" And then I just put Aubameyang. That was it. It was nothing like people who tweet players abuse are just getting the bid. But I just put, "Hello, you there?" ? And then just that was it.
That's pretty passive aggressive, though. I will say.
For goodness sake.
No, I think you're perfectly inclined to call him out, mate. As I think so many of us are, because you're completely right. I mean, you want to see more from him. He's your captain, and you can go way back in time to the likes of Tony Adams, etc. You'd never see them shying away from something like that. And I know it's like such an old-fashioned thing to say, but the captaincy for me and for so many others is still such an important thing. And to be captain of Arsenal Football Club, I mean, it's pretty big deal. To be captain of any Premier League football club, to be captain of any club, demands huge respect. And I think Aubameyang is a player that is so well respected in the dressing room. I hope he is anyway. But shying away from situations like this, both on the pitch and off the pitch, is a big concern for me. I thought he was a good captain following what happened with Granit Xhaka. When things were going well, when we first had Arteta come in, I thought he was fine. I didn't really have any real issues with him. But I think you really start to see a player's true character in these times of adversity. And at the minute, I think there's probably better people in this team. We're all talking about Kieran Tierney. What he came out and said on Match of the Day, apologising on behalf of the team. He shouldn't have to do that, especially Kieran Tierney, because he's the one that is completely free of any kind of criticism at the moment. I think we can all say in unison that he's a player that is really putting his heart on his sleeve in a lot of these games.
Let's do that. Let's all say that in unison. I think that'd be a good thing to try. Sorry,
Yeah.
But no. To go back to your original point, Tom, you're bang on the money.
He's a fine captain when things are going well, but I don't think he's
fine. You're captain to lead by example on the pitch, don't you? Like, he doesn't chase down balls. He doesn't
supposed to lead by example constantly.
But start on the pitch. Like, if you're not going to come out in the press, if you're not,
I'm agreeing.
Yeah,
I'm saying when things are going well, I mean, he's a great cheerleader for the team and an example on the pitch. But when it's not, I mean, is he a confidence player? I mean, we said that we said that about a lot of the guys. We said that about Pepe, and if he's a confidence player and he's going to get in these kinds of ruts, and the others would know much better than I would whether he ever had patches like this at Dortmund. Although I would say the players he was surrounded,
he does.
Well,
Drew said that he didn't ever front up. He didn't ever face responsibility, and that when things got tough, he was one of the people that shied away from things, and he's always been like that.
And so we should know that, and probably not the best pick to have become captain. Although I don't know who would have been in that vacuum left by Xhaka at that time. I don't know who would have been a better pick.
Tini was there, but
he was still in and out of the lineup though. At that
he was
point,
injured, I think, as well. Maybe. Yeah. And I understand it. I just think that, I mean, you look at what happened. Gerard Houllier passed away today, and obviously our thoughts go out to his friends and family. Gerard Houllier took the captaincy at Liverpool away from Sami Hyypiä, and he gave it to Steven Gerrard, and he gave Steven Gerrard his debut as well. I believe that's spot on. Please tell me if I'm wrong. But there is nothing wrong. And Sami Hyypiä went on to continue to play for Liverpool for a significant amount of time, won the Champions League with them, etc. If you've got enough front about yourself as a manager and you've got enough faith in the players, and the players also trust your decision, and if they're not okay with it, you just move those players on. It's as simple as that. If Aubameyang's not going to be okay with it, we've just given him a 3-year deal. It's unlikely anyone's going to ever come in with, anyone's going to come in for him, are they, now on that kind of deal? I would have no issues with Arteta turning around saying that, look, it's not working out. We need people that are going to lead by example, and Kieran Tierney is consistently showing that more. Now, it might be a case of say, look, we're considering this, and then you might see a reaction from Aubameyang. And it might be a case where you give him, say, a warning about it. Arteta has shown more than any other manager that we've had over the past, we've only had 3 over the past 20 whatever years. But he's shown that he's got more about him, that he's willing to actually cut players out of the lineup that are established figures. Whether we think it's being done in the right way or not, we have been asking for so long for certain players to be held accountable for their actions. And Arteta has done that to an extent. Has he done it in the right way? I think he could have done it in a lot more finessed way than he has done. But ultimately, he is making players accountable for their actions. Some people would turn around to me and say that he's making mistakes, he's not being consistent because he's not done with that Xhaka and Willian in the lineup, which I think is a fair point. But what I'm saying is that there are elements that he is starting to show that. I want to get into the chat box and the questions that people are asking, because I've ran over way into question time when I didn't mean to, but the chat was going so nicely that I felt the need to. So sticking with kind of the topic, Andy, Zamir says, why can't Tierney get the armband, and why can't Mainsley get a game in midfield?
I don't know why he can't get the armband, because for me, he's probably the front runner. He's been captain for club and country, I think, at youth level, and he continues to show on the pitch week in and week out. He cares. Again, Mainsley not getting a match in midfield. He's the closest player for me that probably mirrors Partey, right? So with him being out, put him in. It's a like for like. So it's a great questions, and both those things I support 100%. Let's make them both happen.
When Partey's back fit, I'd love to see a midfield with
let's tag them on Twitter until they make those changes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mainsley, where are you? Can we hear you, please? I should make a habit of doing this. Mike Javier says, how many players do we need to offload in January transfer window in order to have a smooth summer? This might be a 3 to 4 window project to get players out.
Well, I mean, and I believe Javier also made another comment this isn't like FIFA. You can't move 15 players out in one window. I wish you could, because that's about the number I would say. We just need to start offloading some of these people. And we said when Ramsey left, this is going to be the last guy to leave on a free, that we don't want to be leaving on a free. And here we are now again saying, well, let's just take cut rate prices. Let's get rid of Mustafi for $4 million just to get his wages off the book. Let's get rid of. I got a whole list. Bellerin, Luiz, Lacazette. I would get rid of Willian, Pepe. At this point, I'm on the fence as far as he is. Ceballos can go back to Real in January for all I care on a loan that's cut short. Maybe Tuto Mercado should be reporting that. Kolasinac, Mustafi. Get as many of the guys out as we can, because there are players who I would support being on the pitch in front of them and being in the 18 in front of them that we have. And whether they're the finished product yet or not, maybe not. But so as many as possible, I would say. There's no exact answer to that.
Just to follow on from that, something you said about players out in January and things, it kind of brought me round to thinking about Matteo Guendouzi again. And it's kind of just sparked a thought in my mind that I get really frustrated with the amount of people that want to see Guendouzi, are desperate to see Guendouzi back at the club. And there is a lot of people. And they're like, we want to see
because he
that
scored a great
drive.
goal this weekend.
Oh, yeah. And obviously, that brought him back into the limelight. But, they're like, oh, yeah, the thing he did against Brighton, he was sticking up for the team, by strangling Neil Maupay and stuff like that. And yet you see the comparison of that between the reaction of the fans towards Granit Xhaka for doing the exact same thing and the disparity between those two, and he should never play for the club again, etc., etc. And yet Guendouzi behind the scenes has refused to apologise. Is Arteta with the club has soured. He sits there with tweeting Ozil when they're both being kind of exiled out of the club. It's a poisonous character. I think he's got all the talent in the world to be a really good footballer. It's a real shame that his personality is clearly flawed. But I just don't like the kind of the comparison to make between how the fans reacted to Granit Xhaka strangling and getting sent off.
We're talking about how different Arsenal players strangle people.
Yeah,
that's what it's come to at this point.
Anyway, James, question from Zachary Briggs. He says, could Arteta possibly be a genesis and showing the board what talent or lack of he truly has in the squad by picking that starting 11 that he does, blow it up before we build again style type approach?
I just have to read that again, mate.
Yeah, it's a case. He's basically saying, is Arteta doing something by showing the board how bad our players are by playing them so that in the future we invest?
No, that's stupid. Sorry, there's nothing to add on that. Really, that is a stupid.
Okay, that's fine. I'm glad that you said it that way. It doesn't make it that's the level of conspiracy that we're getting to now. Is that we're thinking, yes, maybe he's playing the really crap ones, so we can show the owners they're bad. Yeah, I'll give you another question. Russ Morgan says, would you take Per Mertesacker as head coach for the rest of the season, or go straight for an Allegri, Benitez, or Rodgers, etc.?
No, not at the moment. I mean, I'll still stick with Arteta no matter how bad it is in the moment. I still think we can't keep chopping and changing for the time being. I think if we lose to Southampton, then we're talking about this with a lot more seriousness. Mertesacker, I mean, I don't know if you saw the clip of him playing Angry Birds in the game against Burnley. I don't know if he'd be the right guy for it, but I believe it looked like it. Certainly looked like it, but I mean. God, going back to another interview.
He was catching up on all the soon-to-be deleted Pornhub videos that were getting pulled up, which included 3 of ours, Andy.
Without you bringing up some form of misogyny. Go on, James.
Misogyny when they pull 3 Gooners podcast videos off of Pornhub because they weren't verified.
Fantastic. Like I say, I'll stick with Arteta for the time being, but be interested to see what Mertesacker is able to do. I mean, similar player from similar era with Arteta, so I think he's a guy with a lot of character and a lot of front. But I can say the exact same about Arteta. I still don't think it's an individual that can change his team overnight. I still think it's the players.
Andy Zamir says, if Arteta is sacked, what's then the plan? Do you really trust this board with that? What top manager would want to come with without a guarantee of 200 million to overhaul the squad? A Hasenhüttl, Rodgers, or Benitez?
That's just it. I don't think any manager is going to come in without having that big of a kitty, because James and I have been pounding the dead horse. It's the players, and without transfer wages to come in, I just think Arteta is the right man at the helm right now. And maybe this time next year that'll be different, but I don't know that any new manager is going to come in and things are going to turn quickly. It's not happening. And without the funds, it's not going to happen.
I don't understand this reference. I feel like you Americans might. But David Ziegler has said, Tom booking Paul James with Mike and Andy is like CNN booking Dr. Fauci. I don't know who this is. With 2 guys from the Howard Stern show. If you want to explain the reference.
I do get the reference. I don't want to explain it. And he's absolutely right.
Okay, fair enough.
He is right. Is it
too dodgy for the pod? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Dr. Fauci
it is a massive compliment to James.
I was going to say, it sounded
it's a
like
very
a
big compliment to James.
Who's Dr. Fauci?
He's the
Who's Dr. Fauci?
Dr. Fauci is like the one guy who understands the coronavirus in the world.
Oh, that's not me.
Although he didn't. The point is that you're a serious, legitimate character, and we're clowns. Is the point he was trying to make?
Andy, Aussie Gooner says, Tom, usually you correlate stubbornness with older people.
Oh, come on now. That's not fair.
Why do you think Arteta is being so stubborn with the lineups? It can't be fair. For a minute, I thought he said that as like an accusation to me. Tom, usually you correlate stubbornness with older people.
I love how Mike also took that offensive too. Like, what's he talking about me for?
I'm an old person. This isn't fair.
I think he's talking about Arsene Wenger.
Yeah, I know. Why do you think Arteta is being so stubborn with the lineups? It can't be fear because they continue to fail anyway.
I don't know. It's such a weird. When you've got young, hungry football players who are impressing every week in the Europa League, it just doesn't make sense.
That's his crime. I mean, that's the one thing that he's.
It doesn't make sense.
Can I just say I wholeheartedly disagree with Aussie Gooner's statement because my granddad is not a very stubborn man whatsoever.
But I agree with it, Tom, because my co-host on the Gooners pod is old as AF, and he's the stubborn person I've ever met.
That's fair enough. Fair enough. Mark Hooper, thank you so much for joining up as a member. Really appreciate your support. And actually, we had a few people sign up during the last show today, Josh Fairbank and Hanif Hussein. So thank you all so much, guys, and enjoy the exclusive stuff and the Discord server. Now, I should say the Discord server has taken us.
Didn't you get Balogun to join your Discord server recently? Yes,
I was just about to say that the Discord server's taken a little bit of a sour turn ever since I decided to give Mike the link for some reason. And somehow Balogun's now turned up in the Discord server, so it's fantastic, which is great.
Well, look, I thought you might want the insight of someone on the inside.
Tulip says, Mike, what if Arteta gets, say, 7 or 10 points from the next games against Southampton, Everton, Chelsea, and from memory, Brighton, I believe, with scrappy performance? Will it make any positive impact on the fans' mindset?
Absolutely, and it should. I mean, we're not at the point where, I hate the paper over the cracks expression. I think a lot of people would say that 7 to 10 points out of the next 12 would be papering over the cracks, but there are cracks, and if you can paper over them to the point where you can get rid of the cracks, then that's fine. And we need points. Scrappy performance it suggests changes in our personnel. And so if we get honestly, if we get 6 to 8 points out of 12 over the next 4 games, and it's because we're playing harder, because we're seeing changes in personnel, we're seeing some Thursday night folks playing on Sunday, then that should make a positive impact because it will show some sort of evolution in Mikel Arteta's thinking. And for the last month and a half, I haven't seen any of it.
We're going to do a few more questions, probably one each, and then we'll wrap things up. So, James, last one for you. Sam Tressida says, we have identified Arteta is not losing to prove a point, but could it have the same outcome? Figure out the players aren't good enough and inspire more spending in January. That kind of follows on from that weird one we had earlier, but it's trying to make more sense of it, I suppose.
Yeah, I just think it would be absolutely bonkers to play players that you don't rate. Why would a manager do that? You're putting yourself under pressure. I mean, we're talking about the amount of pressure Arteta is under. Why would he want to put himself in that situation? And given all the hard work that he did with these players that are now underperforming, Xhaka, Mustafi, to now see them imploding, why would he do that? It just doesn't register in my mind. Doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. So I think it's just something has happened in that summer. We don't know what's going on, and for some reason or another, it's just not working with this group.
But my view is that Arteta picked Xhaka and the Willian because they are our most experienced options in those positions, and he's looking for kind of short-term gains because the form is so bad that he's looking to those experienced players to try and drag him out of this hole. But that's the only kind of thing that I can come to think of as an explanation as to why he keeps picking those. I don't agree at all, as you don't, James, with the point that he's playing them to try and work out who are the weak ones. I think we could see that from day one. But the point is that I feel that he's kind of looking to those players to be the experience, but ultimately they are letting him down, and he needs to learn that you can't keep persisting with them, and you do need to make a change. Question from Guna Pedro. Andy says, is it not the easy way out to cut our losses with our young promising manager, effectively giving this team another undeserved fresh start? It just allows the rot more time to spread.
That seems more of a statement than a question.
It's a case of, do you agree with this?
I think that we need to give Arteta an ample amount of time to get rid of the dead rot, bring in who he perceives to move the club forward, and then judge him this time next year. Give him January, give him the summer, and see what happens this time next year. Because I think we're going to see a completely different Arsenal team, process, set up, the entire thing. It's going to be different.
Let me ask you something.
8 inches.
If we're
for goodness sake,
if we're sat here in 3 weeks, which I believe is 5 more Premier League games, and Willian is still starting. Xhaka starts after his.
Putting you two on the same pod ever again.
Okay, let's say after 7 more Premier League games, after all these suspensions are through and all of that, and he's still playing Willian and still playing Xhaka and still playing Bellerin and still freezing out Mainsley for whatever reason. And there's been maybe 1 or 2 more social media kerfuffles with players showing a lack of respect or in-game discipline issues. Are you still saying give him to the end of the year? I mean, at this point, despite his reticence to make changes?
If we are truly in 15th, 15 matches from now, and we've continued to see the same thing, then maybe my point changes.
See, I'm less moved by league table position and actual game outcome as I am about the signs. The signs and, are we evolving? Because you could play, we got some tough games coming up. We could easily lose to Chelsea and have it be our best game of the season.
It's a valid point, Mike. I don't know.
Wait,
I'm not ready to let him go. It's a valid point. I'm not ready to let him go.
I'm not ready to let him go either. But it's the lack of recognition of what's happening around him that is the only reason why I don't agree with the letter and the law of exactly what you're saying about giving him a year and giving him the 2 more transfer windows. I just at least want to see him shifting and trying.
Yeah. I think what you're asking actually not quite nicely is segues kind of mirrorly into Yannick Matt's question by saying, why does Arteta still have so much goodwill in the bank when it comes to so much of what we see him when we back him in elements? Now, what I would say is that for me, it's no longer a case of either being, I hate using the terms, but like Arteta in or Arteta out, or as Mike is, everyone out. But like looking at the situation as a whole.
This includes me, by the way. I want myself gone.
So do I at this point. But when you look at kind of the situation, there are elements of Arteta that I look at and I go that there's real hope there in some of the things that he has done at the club that other coaches haven't done. Like making big calls on big players. That I should say, people like Yannick Mack have been calling for Ozil to be axed for so long. And yet now that's finally happened and we're here. And I get that results are horrific. And I think that there does have to come a point where you say that things aren't going to get better and you can't sacrifice your sort of position in the Premier League, which I know sounds crazy, but we're very close to that drop point and we don't look like scoring, and we've just lost to a team that is below us in the table, and we didn't look like really winning the game. There were elements of it where we looked good at the start of the second half, but it was the same stuff that we kind of seen against Wolves and Spurs and in those games where we created some chances, but again the clinicalness of the side just completely let us down and we just didn't look like putting the ball in the back of the net. And it is completely within the realms of realism to think that we could go through our next 4 games and lose them all. Like it's not unrealistic, I feel, to say that at all with how things are right now. I really pray and hope that doesn't happen, and I really hope that Arteta can turn this around. I would love it. I would love it so much. What is it? Kevin Keegan when he turned around to Sir Alex Ferguson. Oh, I'd love it if we beat them. Just I'd love it if we did this, and just turned it around. Not only because it would be hilarious for all the people that were wanting him out before we even won an FA Cup, but because there is a romantic element to Arteta being the coach and it being a former manager, and you want things to work out. But in the real world, there does have to be a cut-off point. I know, Mike, you've reached that now with where we're at.
I'm not even legitimately saying I've reached that point, but
you kind of get the argument a lot more.
I mean, and I'm asking the questions. And Wednesday, is a free pass because he's going to have personnel decisions that were forced upon him. Starting next Sunday, I'm looking at the next 3 matches after that. And
so you say he's got a free pass. So he starts, say, Cedric or Mainsley at right back. He starts Ceballos and El Neni in midfield. And if
he does the second thing that you just mentioned, then I don't think he's learned. It needs to be Cedric in right back and Mainsley in
I don't think that'll happen. I think because you saw him bring off Bellerin for Mainsley and he went right back in the game against Burnley. So I know,
but that's the type of thing I'm talking about. If he starts Willian over Pepe, oh my God! I mean, I'm not claiming Pepe's going to change the game.
I don't think Willian starts at right wing
just because of 2 games in 4 days.
No, but I also don't think he'll start at right. But there's a part of me that feels we might see Willian at left wing, and see Aubameyang through the middle, and see Saka in kind of a 10 role. I feel that that's a possibility that we could see. That I just feel that he has so much faith in Willian that I just don't see him being dropped. Anyway,
I think Wednesday's going to be treated like a Europa League game, so I'm looking to next Sunday at what we're going to be seeing, or Saturday, whatever.
I hope we rotate a lot. I hope that we get something from the game, and that leads us into the final part of the show, which, James, is your prediction for the Southampton game. So just give me a scoreline, mate.
2-0 Arsenal. Why not?
Good stuff. Love that. Andy.
3-1 Southampton.
Are they coming from the guy that wants him in? Just being realistic.
And he hates Southampton too.
True.
From his Pompey days.
Mike.
I predict pain.
Andy's had enough.
I think it's going to be a 2-0 loss.
Yeah.
I just don't see this changing. I don't see it getting better.
I am going to go for a 1-0. I'm just deciding which way in my mind. I can't. But the thing is, I say I can't see us not conceding, but defensively we're okay. I'm going to fall on James's half and be optimistic as I try and go for a 2-0 win as well.
You see, I told you I'm going to be able to come back and say I told you so, and that you're the problem. You are the problem, Tom.
I was the guy
because you're willing to accept
before Burnley.
You're willing to accept poor results and stay optimistic. No, I appreciate I appreciate the optimism. I wish I could share it with you. I really wish I could at this point.
In the chat, Russ Morgan says 3-0 Southampton. Owen says 2-1 loss. So you've got to enjoy his presence later on this evening. Tulip says 3-1 Arsenal. San Trester says we won't score. And they will, so it's going to be 3-0, which is a nice way of putting it. Yoni Matt says, the funny thing is, I think we'll win 2-1 to Mikel's Red and White Army, who don't want him in command anymore, which is fair enough. Amir Roll says, and Walcott is definitely going to score. Ozzy says 2-0.
That's the surest bet.
2-2.
That's the surest bet.
Laura Minwang says draw. Saka says 1-1.
You have to. They have to get 3 goals because Walcott, Shane Long, and who's the other? Charlie Austin. They're all going to score against us, and I don't even care if they don't play for Southampton anymore.
Yeah. Right. Anyway, let's wrap things up. Thank you, James. I appreciate your patience this evening. Thank you ever so much.
You're a trooper, my friend.
No worries at all, mate. Thank you for having me on. You can just find me on Twitter. It's at JECook96.
Yes, and if you need any videography needs, is that the right way of putting it? It's not, is it?
Yeah, that'll do, mate. That'll do. Yeah, if you need any video production, just give me a shout.
100%. Check out James's stuff. It's fantastically professional. Cheers, Mike. Thank you for coming on. Tell people they can find you. I know you're doing a show a little bit later on, so if they've enjoyed the banter, you can find Mike where.
We are at the Gooners Pod, and it's actually in 10 minutes. We will be getting started. It'll be possibly Andy, depending on his work. Well, it's work. It'll be me. It'll be Owen. I had to think about that. And Ryan Rocastle joining us for a chat about the state of the club. We'll probably touch on some of the same things that we've talked about tonight and maybe take it in a slightly different direction. But Tom, as always, consummate professional. Thank you for avoiding. Thank you for backing up on that and having me on there. I appreciate it.
That's all right, no problem, mate. We will see you guys tomorrow for Let's Talk Arsenal. I'll be joined by Owen tomorrow because he just can't get enough of getting on pods these days. So I'll be joined by Owen tomorrow at 5. There'll also be a preview show for the Southampton game, but there will be no Raw reaction show straight after the game on Wednesday because it's the first Arsenal game that happens to be when I'm on shift. So it will be the first one that I missed. There will be a reaction show on Thursday. But other than that, it's been a pleasure to speak to you guys as always, and we'll see you again very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.